My today's guest has deep roots in the sport, fashion, and footwear industry, and he is known for pushing innovation and shaping the industry. He has held major leadership roles at major brands like Bally and the Adidas Group. Warm welcome to Daniel Cimperlin.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Daniel. Before we dive deep into Weave, can you please tell us about your personal journey with Weave?
I started around 21, 22 with Weave with the founder of Weave at the time because we knew each other from the industry. The fashion and footwear industry is very small, so everybody knows each other. And he asked me to support him with my expertise and my network in the industry.
What are the main functionalities and solutions of Weave? Who is it made for?
Weave is made for everybody which wants to streamline basically the processes in the product creation process in the fashion industry. Because from the designer who basically wants to realize his ideas to the material buyer, to the supply chain manager, to the producer, they can basically base their decisions on materials, components, and other elements of the shoemaking process in Weave, and has a seamless documentation of the data, the information, and avoids a lot of mistakes along this complex process because you deal with a lot of different people in the process, different companies, different organizations, different roles, and all these roles can work on the base of one truth basically, and the one truth avoids mistakes, speeds up the process, and minimizes as well the environmental impact of this activity, which is not always very environmentally friendly, exactly, to say it nicely. So that's what Weave is doing, and it's a online platform which basically eliminates all the IT silos in the different organizations along this central product creation process.
So it goes from A to C, as I understand it, so
Yeah.
rather complex. So is Weave more suited to certain industry? You mentioned the shoe, especially footwear, but fashion industry as such, company sizes only for the big ones, or specific stages of the product creation?
No, I mean, Weave is suited for small companies which want to start a digital journey because the industry is very fragmented. There are small family-run companies which have no digital knowledge at all, and Weave is easy to implement there. And the big brands and the big companies can use it to be basically the IT backbone for their different systems which are involved in the creation process along the product creation and product innovation process.
So it works for each size of...
It works for each size with different organizational bases, of course, but that's one of the reasons of Weave, of course, that they connect the small players with the big players, and they all speak one language at the end.
Through
digitally. Through Weave, yeah.
And is Weave highly influential in the product creation process, or is it just enabling the process?
As I said, it's basically the backbone of the creation process, because if you imagine that you go from a designer which works with 3D design tools, then you go to the to the supply chain manager which works with product lifecycle management IT. Then you go to the producer which uses ERP. It's like silos.
Yeah.
And Weave connects these silos. So everybody, even based on different systems, work on one truth and one language.
Are there specific features or tools within Weave that help foster innovation in that sense? Not only like to picture or to capture all the process, but also in the production creativity as such?
I mean, it supports a designer in his creativity, because today, of course, a designer can have whatever idea at the beginning of the process. It's a lot of wishful thinking, I would say, not economically based and not always realistic. because at the end it has to be bought, the material and components, and produced. So not everything is possible what the designer has in its head. But Weave enables him to put his ideas down in a material toolbox. So a designer can put all his wishes in a structured material toolbox. He hands it over to the buyer, the material buyer or the component buyer, and he looks then, is this possible? Do I achieve my target price? Do I achieve the right industrial result at the end? And starts to correct and update and optimize the ideas of the designer, and then goes back to the designer, does this work for you? But in a structured way, not just in a loose conversation.
Okay,
and then
understood.
the designer says, for me it's okay. The buyer says, for me it's okay too. Now we hand it over to the producer. So it's much more defined and structured, this process. We
And
don't lose
streamlined.
information. It's streamlined. You save time, mistakes, money, logistic costs, etc., etc. So there are hard facts behind Weave. And today, of course, all brands, besides being creative and consumer driven, they need to be profitable, and the profitability can be optimized by Weave. And today, of course, the time to market from the idea to the consumer needs to be shrunken more and more. And by eliminating design and not doing things twice, entering data twice, etc., avoiding mistakes, you can compress the development time, which is money in the bank.
Yeah, absolutely. But how do I have to imagine that? So now you told me, like, the designer puts his wishful thinking, as you said it, from the material somehow into the system. So is it more like a library that the designer browses, or how do I have to picture this process? Is it something that is given already, or something that I can creatively put into the system?
Both. I mean, the collections are done based on a material toolbox, as I said. And mostly 80% of these materials in a company, in a brand, are already existing. Maybe they need an additional color, but then don't need something fundamentally new. And so at the beginning of the process, the designer starts to work with his material toolbox, which is already existing. And then he says, based on the trends, based on my ideas, I need this and this additionally. And then he starts to search. Up till now, he searches maybe online, he contacts the existing suppliers, material suppliers, etc., etc. So, and then he adds these materials. Now the new thing in Weave is that this activity, searching new materials and new qualities, is basically done by an AI agent of Salesforce, which is our cooperation partner. So this makes it much more easy. He searches on the net, I need an ecological material in brown in this weight or thickness. So the agent comes back with proposals. I found a supplier in Italy which does this exactly. And then we have this on Weave, this result. And from there, it can be then structured into the Weave database and added as a material. So at the end, he has a 100% toolbox which he can work in the season, which he agrees then with the material buyer and the producer. That's how it works.
Let's talk about producing or manufacturers. What specific benefits have the manufacturers when using Weave in their process?
They just get the correct data earlier and in better quality, so it saves him time. He doesn't have to guess what they want. He has it all in a data form and added by a digital twin of the material or the soul or whatever is needed for a product. A digital twin is an exact duplication of a material, but as a picture, as a 3D picture, basically. And this has the advantage, and then the designer can then basically take this material and use it with his 3D design system one-to-one. So that's another advantage, of course. He has exactly the right material in the right high-res picture, which he can apply to his design, which he's doing.
But in the end, it's still physical. Is there any limitation of the physical material and the digitization of weave? Is like really the touching, the feeling of the material, is that obsolete, or is there something that still exists?
No, it's not that obsolete. It will be always a physical world out there. But of course, if you select a new material, you want to see it and touch it. But up till now, if a designer asks for a sample of a material with his supplier, the supplier had to send a book like this with all colors and with all the different subtype of materials, which is very not ecological, very expensive to send it around the world, because he has to send it to China for the factory, he has to send it to New York for the designers, he has to send it to whoever is involved in the process physically. And the experience, for example, in Adidas Group, when they started to digitalize their processes, was that 20% is still physical, 80% can be optimized and eliminated, which is good for the planet, is good for the finances of the brands and the suppliers. So huge, as well, tangible benefits coming out of this process.
Regardless of physical or digital, is the percentage still the same, 80 to 20? Or
I would say that's this will be different from company to company. For sport shoe companies, it's a little bit easier in terms of visualization in the 3D design process. In real fashion, it's much faster and it's much more complex, because every season new materials and new colors. So the effect, let's say what I call the white shoe side, sneaker side, is higher than on the fashion side.
Okay.
But I think 30-70, 20-80 is a good guess, or as well a proven guess.
Let's get more practical. I'd like to understand better how the software integration is actually done. So if I want to use Weave software, how is it integrated? Through API, or how does it work?
Not being an IT guy, but I mean, as I said before, there are many IT systems along this long process from the idea to the production. And Weave, as well through Salesforce software, can integrate all, let's say, known software solutions to its software. So Weave and external software can be aligned with APIs, and Salesforce has specific solutions for this. But of course, there are, as I mentioned before, a lot of small and little companies in this business, in the fashion business, which are not digitalized at all, and they can use Weave as their base system in the creation process, and basically guarantee as well bigger ones that they can use the data. So you don't need then to transfer one Excel table to the PLM system of a big brand. It's all then basically translated based on this one truth or lingua franca of Weave.
Understood. So goes again for the big companies as well as for the small ones. There is a solution for everyone, as I understand.
From the 3D system to design, basically to the ERP system, which helps the producer to produce. There are APIs and possibilities to connect, and Weave is then basically like the backbone of this whole process for internal and external systems. Today they are very siloed, this system, and they don't talk to each other. And through Weave you can connect all this, whether internal or external, in one process.
Okay, understood. And again, another very practical question. So if I start to implement the system, do I get support from Weave, or do I need to have my own IT people who organize this?
I mean that's both probably. I mean, in small companies we will help them where they are not digitalized really deeply. So we will help them how to onboard, we call this. In big companies we contribute with their IT teams and with Salesforce then on the AI part, how to basically realize and implement these systems. Big companies are always very complex in IT, so you need both partners, and the IT departments in bigger brands or bigger organizations are always very diligent on what they connect with. So it's.
But as I understand, there is a solution for every level.
Yeah, of course. That's very important for Weave because we are then basically, as I said, kind of the lingua franca. We connect whatever level, IT level, a partner, a supplier, or a brand has. We connect them through our base system.
Very interesting. Thank you very much, Daniel. We're coming to an end of our discussion, but I want to hear some final thoughts from your side or advice maybe for companies considering implementing Weave in their product creation process. Any advice there?
Yeah, do it. Apply Weave because, I mean, I went through different companies in my life, from smaller to bigger to huge companies. And as they all suffer from the same problems in the development process or the product creation process. It's so fast and so complex that you need a tool which basically unifies and streamlines your work to get better product, cheaper, faster, etc., etc. So that's my advice. If I would be in a company, I would buy Weave immediately. So it's a must.
A must. So implement Weave. Thank you so much, Daniel, for being here.
Thank you.